Live.
If anyone
I
is
think we are
still
live.
not able to hear you well.
I think we are live. So, am I audible? You can write yes or no in the chat section.
Yes, you are very much audible. Sama.
We should wait for 2-3 minutes, then we can start, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we are audible, I guess.
Yep. We are live. So, Sangeeta, you can start now.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank all of you to join us for this event, and we hope this event turns out to be really fruitful for you. So the DSC Hackfest is a collaboration of 4 DSCs, and I'm Sangeeta Jha. I'm the DSC lead of DSC IGDTUW. So I would like to invite my fellow mates to introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Samarjit, a DSC lead at PGDAV College, and I hope this session will be interesting. So, nice.
Hi everyone, I'm Molkar from DSC Lead from Indraprastha College for Women. Thank you for joining.
So our fourth lead is Mansi. Yeah. Mansi, could you please introduce yourself?
I think there is some network issue, so Sangeeta, you can carry on with the introduction.
Okay, so Mansi Goel is lead for DSC AKGEC. So today we have with us Sunny Mishra, and he is a BSc Honors Computer Science graduate. He is interested in cybersecurity and cloud infrastructure. He has been part of Infosec community for more than 3 years. He likes to play CTFs and create CTF challenges. He's one of the founding members of CTM team, Absolute Tangent, and also a core member of DEF CON community group. So I would like to invite him to take on the stage and present to you a session. Thank you.
Hello everyone, and I just completed my BSc honors from College of Vocational Studies. Let me tell you something about my studies. I am an active CTF player for CTF team Absolute Pawn Edge, as it is pronounced just like Absolute Pawn Edge, where I mostly focus on reverse engineering and exploit development type challenges. So let's get started with today's presentation. Today's topic is Introduction to Cybersecurity and CTFs. So, what is cybersecurity? Talking in layman terms, it is a field of computer science which deals with security aspect of computers and networks. Basically, cybersecurity encompasses all aspects of security which are related to information online, that is, physical, technical, environmental, regulations, and compliances. It also includes third parties which might be involved while delivering an objective. First thing comes to our mind, like why cybersecurity is so important. There are a few points which I would like to discuss. First, the major point is our world today is currently dependent on the technologies entirely. If we want to book a movie ticket online or to talk with my friends, technology plays an important role in it. This same technology sometimes exposes us when it's vulnerable and could lead to loss of essential data. Cybersecurity alongside physical and commercial security has become one of the most important topics in the business industry to be talked about because of just reasons like information breaches or etc. One more important thing is cybersecurity is also necessary since it helps in securing data from threats such as data theft or misuse. It also saves your system from viruses, malwares, or ransomwares. Uh, the main thing which we need to understand about cybersecurity are the three objectives of cybersecurity, which are more formally known as the CIA triad. They are as follows. First is called confidentiality, second is called integrity, and third is called availability. We will discuss a little about each of them now. First is confidentiality. As the name suggests, confidentiality means that the information must remain confidential. In other words, people who are not authorized to have some information must not be able to get it. The most basic example would be our personal chats. I don't think any one of you guys would like someone unknown to be able to read your personal chats. Many of you guys must have heard about security breaches. Here we can define the security breach as a failure of maintaining confidentiality of information. There are many ways confidentiality is enforced, such as by using password or biometric authentication, etc. Next comes the integrity. It basically means that the information must not be tampered with. That is, if I, for example, I say I send a message to someone, doesn't get altered in the transit. Uh, Integrity is mostly enforced using signatures and certificates, which are out of scope for today's presentation. If you want to know more about them, you can search Google for PGP signatures or digital certificates. They are quite a good read, and you should know about them in nowadays. Last comes the availability. It in layman terms means that the information must be available at all times to any authorized person. Uh, uh, when a website, for example, when a website is attacked by denial of services attack, this aspect of cybersecurity is threatened. Imagine critical systems like banks or hospitals going down. It would be disastrous. Availability is ensured by many methods, such as automatic scaling of computers infrastructure to handling more load, or by using firewalls to stop malicious traffic. Now let's talk about major security problems nowadays. First comes the DDoS attack, as discussed previously. In these types of attacks, what happens is that the attacker starts making a lot of requests to a server using a distributed network, or more commonly known as the botnet, so that the server becomes so busy handling all these fake requests, it becomes impossible for the genuine users to access the server. Next comes the malware attacks. Mostly all of you guys must have heard about malware. They are basically bad software or malicious software which are made to do harm rather than good. They can destroy your file system or cause a data breach by uploading your data to a remote attacker somewhere. Third comes the phishing attacks. These types of attacks target the confidentiality aspect of cybersecurity. In these attacks, victims are lured into getting given their password by the means of phishing emails or calls. You must have heard news of like someone calls you for asking, saying that I am from this bank and your account is getting blocked, or if you give me your account number and card number, we can provide you some information, some gift, etc. This is what is phishing attacks. First comes the password attacks. Most of you guys would be thinking, why password attack? What is it? Let me ask you a question. How many of you guys have used the same password on many websites? I think many of you people must be using same password on many websites. Now imagine one of these websites, say let's say Facebook gets hacked, and your password is gets leaked along with your email. Now the attacker knows your email and the password on the Facebook. Now what he can do is he can just spread this email and password to many other sites, and he might get lucky on one website like say Gmail, uh, and your account would be taken over by the hacker. These types of attacks comes under password attacks. Uh, Next comes the ransomware attacks. They can be called like modern kidnapping. The difference is just that instead of kidnapping a person, your data is being kidnapped. Now, just like in kidnapping, if you care about the person, you pay ransom. In these attacks, if you care about your data, you have to pay the price. For example, let's say you are doing PhD and you have wrote a complete thesis on your laptop, and your laptop gets attacked by a ransomware, say WannaCry. What would you do? Either you can write your whole thesis or your last type of attacks are man in the middle attacks. They are one of the worst kind of attack as these target all three aspects of cybersecurity, that is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. You might ask how. Let me ask you one more question. How many times have you guys connected to a open Wi-Fi network and celebrated that you have free internet? In today's world, actually there nothing comes for free. In India, we don't see this type of attacks, but what happens is that when you connect to a open hotspot and the owner of the hotspot is a hacker, he controls the hotspot and all the data going through that completely. Many of you guys would say like website is secured by SSL, then it must be like protected from this kind of attack, but that is not always true. There have been cases where SSL can be stripped and the protocol can be downgraded to HTTP rather than HTTPS. So next time, never connect to open Wi-Fi network that you don't trust, or if you even do, please use a VPN. There are many more types of attacks. We are not going to discuss much about them, and it is just an introduction, and I don't want to bore you guys. So now let's talk about hackers. Well, a hacker is a person who basically knows even more about a system than a person who built it. And he uses all this knowledge to overcome some goals or find some vulnerabilities in the system in order to make the system dance to its will. There are roughly three types of hackers. Uh, One is called black hat, and other is called white hat, and the last one gray hat. Here, I have shown only two because the third one is kind of in between them, and well, it's complicated and difficult to distinguish clearly between black hat clearly. Now, who are black hat hackers? Black hat hackers are those hackers who use their hacking skills for malicious purposes, such as for money or to defame someone or some company. Meanwhile, hackers are their counterpart, and their major task is to find vulnerabilities and then report them to the companies and help them in fixing them. Now let's talk about the fields in cybersecurity in which you can work in. There are basically a lot of fields in cybersecurity. Some of them I will discuss here. First is say network security, which deals with the securing networks, for example, Wi-Fi networks, or say protocols like FTP, plain text protocol, and how to secure that, that sort of thing. And other comes the application security. Let's say Adobe Reader or some has some vulnerability, and you need these type of persons in these fields to help them and secure in them. And mobile security, which deals with the security aspect with mobile apps, etc. And malware and spyware analysis, basically their task is to analyze all the new common malwares and create signatures for them. They are mostly these types of fields are mostly found in antivirus agencies, etc. You can search about every one of their field and know more about them. Now let's begin the fun stuff. Introduction to CTFs. So what is a CTF? A CTF is basically a hacker's version of classical capture the flag game. In CTFs, there are a set of cybersecurity problems which are given to a hacker, and the aim of the hacker is to solve them to get a proof of solving that problem, or more commonly known as the flag. One might ask, like, why cybersecurity and CTF? What are related with? Why are they related? Uh, what I think is the best way to get started with cybersecurity. That's how I got started, and most of the person I know started their journey to the cybersecurity. In CTFs, you can learn and practice all the hacking techniques to safely without worrying about any law you might break. Or, for example, if you'd like, say, try SQL injection on some major live website, say your school's result, your college's result website, you might get in some problem. And also, yeah, cross CTFs are fun. Now let's talk about types of CTFs, or more commonly styles of CTFs. There are of two types. First is called Jeopardy style, in which there are a number of problems and the team solving most number of problem in less time wins. The other is called attack and defense style CTF. In this type of CTF, the team is given a virtual machine which has some vulnerabilities, and the team's task is to patch the vulnerability in their machine while exploiting all the other teams simultaneously. Now comes the last part of today's lecture and the demos. These are CTF problem categories. There are majorly 6 categories of problems in a CTF challenge. There are reversing, pawning, cryptography, forensics, web, and MISC, which we will talk about each of them while solving a demo problem from a CTF. These problems are going to be very, very easy. In real life, you won't find these kind of problems in the field of cybersecurity, but still, they are fun to look at, and they will help you grasp the gist of a category or something. So first comes the reversing. In reversing category, what happens is that you are giving a file, and it might be a binary file, or it might be a, like in case of firmware, so it may be a simple dump file, memory dump file. And what you need to do is reverse engineer it to find the secret flag, and then you can submit the flag and get points. Uh, these types of challenges can teach you about a lot about malware reversing and spyware analysis, as there the hacker is not just giving you the source code to let you understand what is in the malware. So what you do is you get the malware, and then you decompile it or disassemble it, and then you try to look at like what is it. So let's see a demo for it. Here I have a Java class file. It's a compiled Java file, and I choose Java because it's like easy to show and easy to decompile. Otherwise you would have to deal with assembly and stuff, and it becomes quite tedious to deal with on a live demo, as we have very short time. So what we can now, if we run this file, this asks us for a password. As I know from the challenge description, the format was something like this. Now if I give it at any password, it says access denied. Now what we can do is open this in GHydra. GHydra is basically a decompiler or disassembler, you can say, which analyzes the binary file and gives you the source code for it. It was developed by NSA, National Security Agency of America, and it's quite handy to use. I will just load it in here. Just analyze it. Cybersecurity is mostly about tools, and you need to learn how to use those tools and how these tools work and how you can develop these tools. Most of the time, you are just doing this in cybersecurity. So here we have the list of functions which are called, let's say, open main. We can see the what happens in main is that it's printing enter vault password and then reading from the standard in, and then this it's calling a function called check password on the input. We can take a look at check password function here. Here you will find that it has a lot of checks which are being made. Normally that's not the case. Most of the time it uses some kind of hash function to check if the password is correct or not in major softwares, but here for the demo purpose I have just shown this. So what we can do is, like, we can copy all this, the check, and then open it somewhere. Now we need to sanitize it. Gidra's output is quite hard to sanitize. Let me just show you another one, another decompiler. If you search Google for Java decompilers, you will find a lot of them, where you can just upload the file and get the Java file. See, here the input is quite better. Output is quite better. So let it go through it line by line. First, it will check if the string of length of string is 32 or not. So we know that the length of the password should be 32. Let's create a solve.py for, and we can say that password is an array of with length 32, just to be safe. Now let's just sanitize it a little bit. Now let's do some magic, or more commonly known as regular expression search and replace. First, what I will do is that I will replace this whole part with s equals to as this only. Again, what I am doing is just transforming into a Python code. I will just now we will just replace it with this, and finally get rid of all the ands. Copy it in our script, and then just we can print it in the array by using join. And here we get the password. Congratulations, access granted. This was a very basic challenge because reversing. I have actually solved some reversing challenges. It took me like a whole week to solve. Like there is currently flare on challenge going on, which which consists of 11 challenges, and each of them are like harder and harder. So now let's talk about the second category known as pawning. In pawning or exploit development, more commonly known as, what happens is that you are given a binary file, and what you need to do is find some vulnerability in the binary and then write an exploit for that vulnerability in order to get a shell on the server or to read the flag file. So let's see a demo for it. This one is going to be interesting and quite hard to understand. Let's say I have a program, C program, which contains a function void shell, but it is not called. Say it is represented out here. So you might think, what's the vulnerability here? The vulnerability here is in the getters function. It just doesn't know when to end reading input. So if you like pass more input than 128 characters, it might override some important stuff from the stack, as the local variables are stored on the stack. So if let's try it. Let's give it only some input. Nothing happens. Let's say give it 1,000 days. Here we see we have segmentation fault. But why is that? Why a segmentation fault? So what happens is that when a program executes and a function is called, let me just show you. I will. The GDB is a debugger which is used to debug programs. Let me just break at main and run it. What happens is that when a function is called, it is called using a call statement in an assembly. What call statement does is that it pushes the return address to be where the function program needs to continue its execution after returning from a function. So if you see here, we can see that the return address is stored. Return address is also stored on the stack. Here we can see the return address is libc start main, the function of which libc start main is a function from GNU libc, whose task is to set up the environment variables and other stuff and then call the main function. So here we can see the stack contains the address. Now when we run it and let's say pass it a lot of A's, note this address. Now what happens is that if you see, the same address contains a lot of A's. Now what we have done is that we have overwritten the return address where the main function is to be returned to after its complete execution. So basically now it points to some random jargon which is 414141, which is hex for A's, which is it is not mapped anywhere, so that's why we get a set fault. Now what how is can this be exploited? Here in this binary we have just given the win function, or most of the time it's not the case. Here if we see, there is a shell function which we can call in order to get a shell. Most of the time we have to like input some shell code or like do some reverse rope oriented programming to get a reverse shell, but for the sake of simplicity here I have just included this function so that it not gets boring. So what we can do is like we can find the address of the shell function. Here we have the return address and just say note it somewhere. Now what we need to do is like find after how many A's does we were able to overwrite the return address on the stack. We can use a utility called MSF pattern create, which will create a pattern, a cyclic pattern, which can help us to find offsets. Now when I run it, I can just pass this as input and I can see like the return address is overwritten by this value here. Now I can use another utility called MSF pattern offset to find the offset that it's at 136. Okay. So now what we can do is like we can create a simple one-liner for this. Python one-liner. What it will do? No, not one-liner. Let's create a Python file. Here I will use the onlib uh, library, which is mostly used to for crude exploits development, etc. I know the offset is 136. Now what I can do is create a padding which will just consist of a lot of A's exactly to 136. Now we have the return address here. What we need to do is convert this return address to little endian format, as the in memory all the things are stored in little endian format. That's how it is in Intel and AMD. Like that's how it is in x86 architecture. So we can create a payload as padding, and we can use a function called p64, which converts number 2 into a little endian format. Okay. Now we can open a file called payload and then write payload to it. Doing the head stump of payload file, we can see it consists of a lot of A's, and in the end there is our return address where we need to jump. Now let's again open it in GDP, and I will just break here for the return statement, and now run it with our payload as input, and you can see we are now going to jump to shell function. See here. Now let's check this payload. See, we have a shell inside the binary. That's how powerful hacking is. You can just convert a simple program. You can just exploit it to do anything on a server or on a computer. Now let's talk about the next category, which is crypto. Basically, I don't like crypto much. I mostly like reverse engineering XYW, but I will just show you the basic examples for it. In crypto category, what happens is that you are given a ciphertext. You need to figure out. You basically need to figure out what it is and how you can reverse it to get the flag. This category can be, say, let's say, they demonstrate. For example, there is a spy in some country. He needs to send some message to some other to his home country. So what he can just cannot like write a simple letter or send a WhatsApp message to the to his country, as it might get intercepted and it might be read, and he might come into a problem. So what he can do is like he can use cryptography techniques to encrypt that message he is sending, and then he can send it. And as only he knows what the crypto is and what the password for the crypto is, then it becomes much more secure rather than sending just a file. So let's see today's example for crypto. Let's say here I have a ciphertext. It just consists of dots and slashes. Most of you guys must have guessed it, like it looks like a Morse code. Yes, it is a Morse code. It was not meant to be like encryption or crypto, but most of the time you can find it like if they morph it in some ways. Like for example, they replace it zero with dot or dash with one, and then they send it to just like complicate the stuff. As you will, when you say zero and one, you think of binary, but in real it's a Morse code. Cryptography is mostly about tracing stuff and making the person who's trying to solve your crypto just rub his head and bang it on the wall. So here we have a crypto, a Morse code. You can find online decoders for it. The best one I like is called CyberChef. It can be used to do a lot of crypto stuff and a lot of other stuff. So just I give it as input and search in operations Morse code, apply the formation, and we get the flag. Quite easy, and still it can be complicated so much that you would bang, you would get crazy solving any challenge. Next category is forensics. In forensics, you can be given a many types of files. For example, a disk image or a PNG file or a zip file which is corrupted in some way, or many other stuff can be given to you. Or what you need to do is apply forensic analysis on the file or something, like say on a laptop, to get flag in CTFs flag, or in real life. For example, so a forensic expert apply these techniques to get data from someone's computer or someone's logged computers, etc. So let's see demo for it. Uh, Here, if you can see, I just have a file, PNG file, JPG file, sorry. Uh, on the top of it, it doesn't look like it contains anything. Even if you like see file information, you don't find anything. Uh, Many of you must have heard about active data. You can see active data. You don't find anything here. It's just a normal JPG file. There is nothing here. But what's the thing with JPG files is that there is some structure to them. Like they contain a header and they contain a footer. So, and all the data about JPG files is in between them. So what happens is that whenever a program opens a GPG file, it just looks in the header and decides what kind of color it is using, what kind of encoding the JPG has, and what it and then it just reads the file until it encounters the footer. Now, what if let's say we just what will happen is that no one will be able to find it normally, but there are ways to find it. Like for example, we can open it in a hex editor, or we can run strings on it. Strings is a great utility which what it does, it extracts strings from any file. So let's say if I run strings on garden on GPG, you will find that it contains a flag. What happens is that if I just open it in a hex editor, it's quite a big file, but still we will find that 30598. When I go to the end, what happens is that here the JPG header is finished someplace here, and then after that there is a long string. It just all the JPG viewers just ignores it, and but through this someone might be able to send some useful data to some information. For example, you want to send a secret message to your friend, and you can just encode it after a JPG file, and everyone will just open the JPG file to see if it contains any stuff. But at the actual messages behind the after the JPG file, not only strings can be concatenated to a JPG file, but even zip files and another JPG files can be concatenated after a zip file. So it's quite a common technique and to hide data from forensic experts. Next category is web challenges. What happens in web challenges is that you are given a website and you just need to find some vulnerability on the website. For example, there might be SQL injection, or there might be some information disclosure in the source code, etc. There are many types of web vulnerability. You just need to find them and then exploit them to get a flag. So let's see a demo for it. It's quite an easy one. I'm using most of the challenges from Pico CTF because it's quite a easy CTF and helps you understand cybersecurity concept quite easily. You can search for it on Google. So here we see that we have a login panel. We need to provide some password to it in order to get past it. But what is it's just a crude example. So what we can do is like see source code of it, what happens. And to our surprise, we find that the password checking functionality has been implemented in JavaScript by someone. So we can just copy it and see what the password is in order to get the real password. Where here we can see the split variable A is assigned 4. So what happens is that split times 1, 0 will be first, and split times 1 will be next 4 characters, and etc. So what we can do is like first we can just copy it from the its place. Let's say here's the pico, and then comes the substring from split 1 to split 2, that's 4 as this, and then split 2 to split 3 this, and then split 3 to split 4, and so on. Here have the flag, we can submit it to see if it's correct or not. Password verified. Congratulations, you had the website. Awesome. So next category is MISC. In MISC categories, what happens is that this category is the mixture of all the categories, and they require a lot of skills. Like the challenges can require some skills from crypto and some from reversing and etc. There is no specific task that you need to do in this category. You are just given something and you need to do. You need to use something or use some skill to get something out of it, like say flag. So let's see a demo for it. This will be last demo for today. Now, let's say we have a zip file. When we try to open it, it contains a flag, but it asks for a password. But I don't know what the password is. So I need to somehow recover it. So how can we recover it? What happens is that in zip files, the password is used to encrypt the data. So what we can do is like create a hash out of it, and then you use some hash tracking utilities like John or Hashcat to track it. So first of all, we need to convert the zip file to hash, which we can use using a utility called zip2john, which will create a hash. Now taking a look at hash, it's just consists of the file name, total file name, which has been encrypted, and the format, usual stuff, etc., etc. Now what we can use is we can use a utility called John the Ripper, which is used for cracking the passwords. So just we pass it to a hash, and then we pass it a word list. A word list is basically a database of passwords, a common password. The most common word list used in CTF is called ROCU. It's there's a reason behind it. You can search about it. As I have used this, let me just clear the pod file. Pod file stores all the password that you cracked previously, so it won't show it here. When I crack it, it runs pretty fast as the password was quite easy. And we can see the password is recovered as butterfly. Now we can use the password to extract the flag file. See, you can now track zip files. Well, That's it for today, guys. Thank you very much. If you have any question, you can mail me to mail@mishasani174.tech, or you can check my website, mishasani174.tech. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, sir. Yeah, it's really an awesome session. So there are some questions. I will show. There is some question from Javed, and
Yes, sure.
yeah, and he want to know which language do we prefer if we want our career in ethical hacking.
In ethical hacking, you need to just most of the time, if you can learn all the languages, it would be perfect. But you can start with, like, say, Python and C and C++, that there, and Java also, as these languages are mostly used, and most of the softwares are written in these language, and these languages these softwares you need to analyze in order to find some vulnerability, etc. on them.
Okay. And there is one more question from Akash, and he want to know on which platform we can practice our ethical hacking skills. Is there
There
any
are
particular
Yeah, there are many platforms. There is you can do one thing. You can go to a site called ctftime.org. That is ctftime.org. Here you can find many CTFs which happen. CTFs are the security challenges, which security competition which I showed, from which I showed you some challenges before. You can just go to ctftime.org. Here you can find many CTFs happening all around the year, and you can participate in them, and you can see, like, let me show you.
Okay.
If you just you go to ctftime.org, here you will find that there are many events happening, and you can just take part in them and learn more and more skills.
So are they free of cost, or we have to pay some minimum charges
uh,
for that event?
Most of the time it's free of cost. Almost every time it's free of cost. All the events on ctftime.org are free of cost. Even if you, like, there are qualifiers and there are finals, if you get selected in qualifiers, the event organizers even pay you to come to their college or their country to participate.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And so one personal question, is there any specific course we can do to make ourselves stand in cybersecurity world?
There are many certificates like OSCP. Mostly famous certificates are from offensive security. You can go to their site and find many certificates there. Or in India, there aren't many, like BTech or BSc in cybersecurity. There are some private colleges which provide that. You can think about joining them, like in masters. But mostly, you certificates would be awesome. The best one I would suggest is OSCP for someone beginner. Like, they will teach you from zero to hero in cybersecurity.
Okay, that's great.
Mm.
So thank you so much, sir. It was a great having you on our live session, and it's really gonna help a lot of students. So thank you so much, sir, for this amazing session.
Thank you very much.
Yep. So thank you all our listeners. So for some amazing upcoming sessions, you can subscribe to the channel, or you can join our community pages, all our DSC's community pages, for some amazing upcoming events. And please join the Hacktoberfest and win some amazing swag T-shirts by doing 4 pull request. So thank you so much, guys. Bye.